From the wooded hills of Chilmark, Massachusetts on the island of Martha's Vineyard, this is the Jim Powell Report. I'm your host, Jim Powell, and today we're interviewing Professor Alan Dershowitz at his home. This is our third visit.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see you again.
I think I have tenure now.
I think you do,
You have
Professor.
to keep coming back, right?
It's good to see you. Well, for our viewers, we want to remind them of your wonderful career as an author, as an attorney, as a professor at Harvard University.
And as a resident of Martha's Vineyard.
As a resident of Martha's Vineyard. Well, there are many accomplishments that you have. And I'm so glad that you took the time from your busy schedule here. And the last time we were visiting, we were talking about some of your books, Abraham the Attorney. You have lots of different projects. You've been involved with Israel in the World Court. You've had a lot of things going on at Harvard. Where would you like to start today?
Well, this is my 47th anniversary of coming to the Vineyard. I came to the Vineyard at the time that the first man walked on the moon, but not because the first man walked on the moon, but because tragically, that was also the time that Senator Kennedy drove the car off the bridge in Chappaquiddick, and I came to be part of the legal team. First time I came to the Vineyard, I hated it because all the journalists were here. They were pushing and shoving. The Kelly House became kind of the headquarters in Edgartown, and I swore I'd never come back to this place. Of course, the next year I came back, rented a house from Tony Lewis, the great journalist, and I've been coming back pretty much every year since.
Ever since, the island has grown in notoriety worldwide for all the different, the Kopechne case, the Chappaquiddick.
But we were very lucky because we bought the house that we're sitting in now just before President Clinton and hopefully future President Clinton, I'm giving away my biases, came to the island, and real estate was still affordable. I think once the Clintons came, there was a big push upward. Don't think we could have afforded to live in this beautiful home.
Yeah, we certainly felt it, and what a beautiful home it is up here in the Chilmark Hills, and it's a great place for you to reflect and relax after all your...
And I write every day.
Yes.
I get up 7 o'clock in the morning, and I work straight from 7 till 11:45. Then I go to the Chilmark store and have my slice of pizza or whatever. And then that's usually my work day. Sometimes I'll do an hour at the end of the day, but always working on at least one book, sometimes 2 books, and occasionally consulting on cases, mostly international and transnational cases these days, involving people who have problems in multiple countries around the world. That's been my specialty.
And your unique perspective on fairness has been written up in, what, nearly 30 books, is that right?
30, I'm working on number 36 right now. 36. Now, since I met my wife in 1982, it's been about a book a year. So she's been an inspiration for me. Yeah,
that's great, and you know, to have a peaceful environment here where you can process and relax and reflect is so important. I'm sure.
It is, but you know, this past year has been a very interesting and disturbing one for me. For 50 years, I've been representing people charged with crime, and then last year, I was falsely accused of doing something, of having sex with a 16-year-old girl that I never met and didn't know and was never in the same city as. Totally made up, completely fabricated, perjurious charge. You know, she ought to pay some consequences for it, but we'll see what happens. But it was a tough year. You know, there are some people who think, you know, rape is a very serious crime. Even statutory rape is a very serious crime. Some people think it's so serious that even innocent shouldn't be regarded as a defense. And I was totally and completely innocent, was able to prove it. Fortunately, I keep everything. I don't throw anything away. So I had all my travel records. I had all my cell phone records. I had all my TV appearances. And I was able to prove that I couldn't physically have been in any of the places that she said she had sex with me during a particular period of time. So it was clear that she was just making up the whole story. But it was so interesting, finally yourself to be accused of something after defending so many people. As I said to somebody, in every other case, I've always had doubts. Is my client innocent or is my client guilty? I'm never completely sure. The only case I've ever had where I've been 100% completely sure was my case.
Yes, that was good. I noticed as you walked in, there's a stone outside on
Yeah.
your doorstep. Nothing certain is written in stone.
Right,
And the
right.
irony of it is that it's written in stone.
It's written in stone.
It's
I
written
love
in stone.
irony.
It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
And to be able to pick up on that. And the ironies of the free system that we're involved with, where people can accuse and go through the litigious motions.
Oh, it's a terrible
makes
system.
it very difficult to want to even walk down the street or interact with others.
Well, in this case, the woman and her lawyers made the accusation in a court proceeding. So it's much harder to sue somebody if they say it in a court proceeding. They didn't have the courage to say it on the media or on television because they knew I would have immediately sued them and collected enormous damages. So they hid behind what's called the litigation privilege. But that has to change. The laws have to change, and people have to be held accountable. You know, a woman who falsely accuses somebody of rape hurts every rape victim because it makes people say, well, maybe others aren't telling the truth. People shouldn't think that. The vast, vast, vast majority of people who claim that they've been assaulted have been. This woman made up the story for money. We know she got paid $160,000 for talking to tabloids, and she was hoping to get millions and millions of dollars from wealthy people. So people like that should not be rewarded. They should be punished for using other people and making up stories.
Almost, I want to say the principle of the spilled hot coffee, that there were damages awarded so that no one would go out and make hot coffee like that.
Right.
You know, it's like you want to have people telling stories that aren't, so it's terrible. But
that's
it is what a world we live
over, and now I'm working on a book involving the election. I'm working on a book involving the future of liberalism. I'm working on a book called Why I Left the Left But Couldn't Join the Right, the Case for the Vital Middle or Vital Center, where I'm trying to argue that we're seeing extremism develop in all parts of the world now, right-wing, left-wing, and we're a centrist country. We're a country of moderate people, and we ought to return to that center. You want to be liberal, fine. You want to be a conservative, fine. But be a centrist liberal, be a centrist conservative. Don't be a radical revolutionary on either side. I think our system best thrives when we have centrists.
Have we become so free, or have we learned to manipulate our system so much that the extremists are trying to get attention? Is that what's going on?
They're getting attention. First of all, terrorism. We're all scared of terrorism. Look what's happening in France, in Germany, in Belgium, in Israel, all over the world, and in the United States. Homegrown terrorism. The director of the FBI, Comey, recently said, the more we defeat ISIS abroad, the more we will create homegrown terrorists at home. So it's a no-win in some ways, and we're all frightened that, you know, we could be the next target. Anywhere you walk in a crowded city, you could be a target. And that kind of fear encourages extremists to come up with simple-minded solutions. And I think we're seeing a little of that in this election.
Yeah, some simpletons are coming up with simple solutions to complex, centuries-old problems and differences. And, you know, I was just thinking as I saw some helicopters flying around last week and read the report of the DEA chopper that we don't need to comment on much, but I thought about each side. Neither the DEA nor the state police seem to accept responsibility for who sent the chopper, and yet they plucked up 600 marijuana plants here in Martha's Vineyard. And
you'd think maybe they had better things to do. And you know, the other problem, of course, is when you have helicopters flying above us or you have drones flying above us. Hey, I'm in my hot tub. My wife's in the swimming pool. We're entitled to a little bit of privacy in relation to the air, too. We don't grow marijuana plants. But marijuana is essentially been legalized today in Massachusetts, and certainly for medical use.
Yeah, and I wonder what motivations they have, or what their policy is, or what their reasons are.
What their priorities are.
Their
you know, we have real crime. Let's not worry about a few people.
And most of it's coming in at the ferry.
And I am talking from the point of view of somebody. I'm 78 years old, and next month I have never tried marijuana. I have never tried any drug. My drug of choice is a really good Brunello wine, a red wine, but that's about it.
Good. Well, that's good. It helps with your clarity of thought, and I'm sure that's important.
And with my cholesterol.
Yeah,
All of which are
true,
important,
yes.
right?
So the issues of today have included upsetting ones and nerve-wracking ones, but there's one thing I love about coming back to the island is that if I shut the television off and go to Lucy Vincent or Lambert's Cove Beach,
Right, yep.
that everything in the world seems to come back in focus. Whether I'm by myself or with family or friends on the beach, everything seems to come back in focus.
You're absolutely right.
And
I take a walk on Lucy Vincent pretty much every day. Fortunately, I have the best relation with boats. Don't own one, but have friends with them. Just came back from
where'd you go?
going, just Quitza Pond and a little bit out into the ocean. We went around and saw the Gay Head Cliffs. Gay Head Cliffs, viewed from the ocean or the sound, may be one of the most beautiful sights in the world.
I agree.
In the world. And I've been to beaches all over the world. There's nothing like the Gay Head Cliffs beach.
That's right, and a lot of people say that the colors of Turkey, the colors of the soil and land there, the buildings, are outstanding. But I agree with you, and that must be why the British sailors, when they were sailing around the western end of Martha's Vineyard, looked at those colorful cliffs
And got distracted.
and said, look at those gay, bright cliffs, Gay Head Cliffs.
I didn't realize that was the origin.
Yes,
Okay,
that's how it happened.
Right.
And the second lighthouse keeper on Martha's Vineyard, actually on the eastern end, Matthew Mayhew, a relative of mine.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We have old whaling logs.
Okay, you know what I have? I owned the newspaper from 1798 that published the law signed by President John Adams authorizing the building of the Gay Head Lighthouse.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That is a wonderful document.
Yeah.
And the documentary that came out last year on PBS about rescuing the lighthouse.
Well, we all contributed to that, and
Yeah.
we're so thrilled that the lighthouse will continue to light the way when our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren are looking at the beauty of it.
It's prominent, it's beautiful, and I'm glad you got to motor around from the ocean and see that. There are lots of rocks that are hidden in the area called Devil's Bridge that come jut out. The Camel's Back.
And there have been a lot of shipwrecks there. You know, that's why the lighthouse was put there, obviously, to try to prevent shipwrecks. And
Yes, and you've had a little bit of work with documentaries yourself with, is it David Greenberg on the Inside Israel?
well, we've done a few documentaries on the Middle East, and I continue to do that because it's very important for people to have a true picture of what is really going on in the Middle East. It's much more complicated than the slogans one hears. People say Israel is an apartheid state. When you go there and you see blacks and whites living together, intermarrying, Jews and Arabs living together, it's not a paradise. Obviously, there are problems, but everybody should go to Israel at least once. If you're a Christian, the most beautiful Christian sites are there, the Church of the Epiphany, and some of the greatest places, the walk, the Via Dolorosa, and if you're a Muslim, obviously the Al-Aqsa Mosque. If you're Jewish, the Western Wall. If you're an atheist, hey, there's plenty to see also. Beautiful architecture and beautiful beaches. Tel Aviv is one of the most livable cities in the world. It's supposed to be the most gay-friendly city in the world. And it's a wonderful country to visit.
I love the perspective that you brought out of the great innovations that are developed.
Startup Nation, it's called. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Every kid goes in his garage and comes up with a computer program. I met the guy who did Waze. He just, just invented Waze, and I think Google paid him $1 billion for it. And many other startups, kids who just were first-generation immigrants from Russia, from Ethiopia, from parts of Europe. There's an enormous amount of resources put into innovation in Israel because they have no oil. They have very few natural resources. The only natural resource is the mind and the talent and the hard work.
And Israel has perfected that.
And any country could do it. There's nothing different. Any country can do it. When Israel ended its occupation of the Gaza, Gaza could have been the Singapore of the Mediterranean, and instead they used the money they got to build rockets and tunnels to try to kill innocent people instead of building schools and hospitals and infrastructure for their own people. It was a terrible tragedy, a waste.
Yeah, when they plow their money into destructive energies and projects, they seem to reap that reward, huh? And not go anywhere with it. But I know that with the time I've spent teaching out at the Utah Valley University, that which is just south of Salt Lake City.
Right.
They
Beautiful city.
Yeah, and they have 65,000 students at this university. It's tucked right up against the Timpanogos mountain range.
Wow.
It's over 11,000 feet high, just about 3 miles away. But the whole valley is full of companies that are leaving Silicon Valley in California, and they're moving to Utah because of livability,
Sure.
and they can sustain the labor market right
We're going
there.
to see a major change in demographics around the United States and around the world because people don't have to be where they work anymore. Everybody can telecommute. And Telluride, for example, became a place where people from Silicon Valley could move to and be able to work. I have research assistants now. I never see them. We're just I talk to them all the time, and I'm on email with them all the time, but they don't have to be physically where I am. And that's been one of the most significant changes since I started to practice law 5 years ago.
That's right, yeah. Now we can have our meetings via Skype and wherever we are. I have a cousin that just lives across the street from me, and his business is in England.
Yeah, well, my business today, I will have conference calls via Skype with people from London, California, Switzerland, France, some African country, Israel, you name it, sometimes some Asian countries, and it's as if we're all in the room and we can all do our work and get together. If I have to argue the case, obviously I have to fly over to The Hague or wherever it is that I have to argue the case, but that's only 1 or 2 days. The rest of the work can be done wherever we want to live. I think the Vineyard is going to become a real destination, not only for retired people, but for people who really want to conduct their lives from here, their professional lives.
And a nice relaxed environment. But I love the 4 seasons that the island offers.
Yeah.
I love it that...
I love 3 of the 4 seasons.
3 of the...
Dead winter.
What's the winter like?
Do without, I'm too old to slip on the ice.
Yes, we do get some cold New England
winters. So I try to get
winters.
away to nice, balmy South Beach, Florida, for the winter where I don't slip on the ice.
Yeah, I know a lot of vineyarders like to head down near Anna Maria on the West Coast.
Yeah, we're on the East Coast, but we have friends on the West Coast as well.
Yeah, and that's wonderful
there.
to do that. And not so far away. It's a quick flight from Boston down there.
Yeah.
So anyways, with all the different issues that we've talked about today, and we're looking forward to your next book or 2 that comes out.
Yeah.
And we're up to date with reading them. So
hopefully, I have a friend on the porch who said I write him quicker than he can read them, so he's told me to slow down a little bit, but I hope I don't slow down. I love writing. To me, people think they see me on TV, I must love the public life. To me, the 4 hours, and I write everything by hand, the 4 hours that I sit with my yellow or white pad with a flare pen, and I write my 3,000 or 4,000 words a day, which is what I try to have as my quota, are the most peaceful, relaxed, and in some ways professionally gratifying, especially now with the internet. I could write a column starting at 9 in the morning, I'll finish it by 11, I'll send it in, it'll be online by 1 o'clock, and I'll be getting reaction by 2 o'clock. It's amazing. And you can't make mistakes because there's no time to correct them, so you have to be very careful.
That's right. The instantaneous nature of our communications today makes it so that we have to cross-check our references, or no. But with the experiences that you've had with all the different people in the world, you have got to learn a lot about human nature.
Well, I mostly meet people when they're in trouble. And you learn a lot about people. I usually meet very famous, often very wealthy, prominent people at the lowest point in their lives, and I need to help them. and it's often very difficult. They're not used to needing help. And that's why when I was falsely accused, it was an interesting experience to know what it must feel like. In some respects, it almost completed the experiences of my career. I'm much more empathetic now with people who are accused. I'm much more open to the possibility they've been falsely accused, although not all of them have been falsely accused. But I meet people at a low point in their lives. I also obviously meet politicians and others. Hillary Clinton's coming to the Vineyard, I will meet her. When President Clinton comes to the Vineyard, we've spent time with them over the years, and we remember Chelsea since she's this high. So, you know, this has been one of their places of relaxation. President Obama one summer lived right there over the bushes, just literally less than 50 yards from here. We would hear the kids splashing in the water. So this has become a vacation place of choice for some of the most prominent people in the world. And, you know, you're fortunate to get to meet some of these people.
Yes, and to have an influence. But I like it that you brought out the point of empathy, because even though you had successfully lived your life through that you've actually peeled or added another layer to the onion.
Well, you always add layers. Somebody was quoted as saying, I want to die young, but very late in life. And I'm going to use that as, I think, a standard. Obviously, I want to live for a long, long time, but I want to remain young. One of my great thrills, I was a basketball player as a kid. I played high school varsity basketball, and when we had this house, my wife built a half-court basketball court in the backyard. And I have a 21-year-old grandson who plays club soccer for Harvard. He's a fantastic athlete. I can still beat him in horse because I still have that corner jump shot that he can't make, and I can still make that corner jump shot from the time I was in high school. So as long as I can make my jump shot, I'll remain young. I told my wife, never pull the plug on me as long as I can make my jump shot and enjoy chocolate, enjoy corn. For me, one of the great national holidays is when island corn is made available for the first time. It was this week.
That's right.
And I have had, I think, 11 corns since Saturday. I love
You got me beat by 9.
Oh yeah, no, it's fantastic.
About 6 years this afternoon at Green Farm. Well, Professor Dershowitz, it's great meeting with you and
Likewise.
sharing your thoughts and your anecdotes, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer, and there'll be some great birthday parties coming up right nearby here.
Well,
and,
I'm having my birthday party soon, and this weekend my 3 children are coming up to spend the weekend here, so
good. It all comes together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for meeting with us
Thank
today.
you. Always
Take
a
your
pleasure.
time.
Keep doing
Thank you
good
very
things.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for watching this episode of the Jim Powell Report. I've been speaking with Professor Alan Dershowitz here, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon.